Vander Roos with 19 News coming to you from our digital desk. We're about to take you to a news conference live at City Hall with Mayor Justin Bibb as well as his entire command team for the police department. You'll remember that the Cleveland Police Department has been under the jurisdiction of the Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Justice, since 2015. It's called the Consent Decree. There were a number of complaints about use of force for the Cleveland Police Department, and so that has started a lengthy and expensive process of getting that police department back in line with what the DOJ says is current. Let's take you live now to the announcement by Mayor Justin Bibb.
In our city's history, trust was broken. Our systems weren't where they needed to be, and our community demanded better. And for the last 10 years, that's exactly what Cleveland has done. Our residents showed up at community meetings and listening sessions through public comment. They shared hard truths. They held us accountable, and they helped shape a better path forward. So this moment belongs to them. Now let's be clear about what we've accomplished. We didn't just check boxes. We didn't just write policies. We changed the culture of policing in Cleveland. We invested in training. We strengthened supervision. We built real systems of accountability that are now a part of how this division operates every single day. And the results are real. A 97% constitutional use of force rate in level 1 and 2 incidences. A 100% thorough investigations in serious use of force cases. A 55% reduction in force-related complaints, a less than 2% arrest rates in crisis intervention situations, and less than 0.5% use of force in those same moments. That's not temporary progress. That's sustained change. Cleveland today is not the Cleveland of 2015. And the consent decree was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to help us build the systems to get this moment right. Today, those systems are in place. Accountability in Cleveland is now local. It is embedded, and it is strong. We have one of the most effective oversight structures in the country. And that's what modern, accountable policing looks like. Now, I want to be clear about something. The end of federal oversight does not mean the work ends. It means we now have the capacity and the responsibility to lead this work ourselves. Over the life of this decree, Cleveland invested nearly $40 million to build this strong foundation. And now we have the opportunity to reinvest those resources directly into our community, into better training, modern technology, and community-based public safety strategies. Now, I also understand that this moment may bring some mixed emotions. For some, it represents real progress. For others, it may raise some concerns. Both are real, and both are very valid. And to the residents of this great city, I hear you, and I feel you. But I can say this with my utmost confidence. Cleveland is ready for this moment. So I want to thank the hardworking men of the Cleveland Division Police for their admirable service over the last 10 years to get us to this moment and the work they do every single day to keep our streets safe and secure. I want to thank Dr. Leah Anderson and our amazing police accountability team who has made this moment possible. I want to thank Chief Todd, who has led the fight over the last several years to make sure we modernize our police department for the 21st century, and also want to thank Director Drummond as well for his leadership to getting us to this moment as well too. But lastly, I want to thank the people of Cleveland, because None of this happens without you. Your voice, your persistence, and your belief that we could do better. This milestone belongs to all of us. And as we move forward, you have my commitment as your mayor that we will lead with transparency, we will lead with accountability, and we will continue to build a safer, more just Cleveland for every single resident. Because that's what this moment is about, and that's what comes next. Now I'll have the Council President also share a few words. Council President.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Mayor, and thank you all of the members of the administration that are here today. And I also want to acknowledge all of my colleagues, but specifically two of my colleagues are here today, the Chair of the Safety Committee, Chairman Michael Polensek, the Dean of Council, as well as Councilman Brian Casey, who we all know has been very active in watching the actions of the consent decree. I come here for two reasons. In 2015, Cleveland was going through one of its most tumultuous times in our history. And as the former executive director of the Community Relations Board, I was able to sit at the table and negotiate as part of the team with former Mayor Jackson, with the Department of Justice, and my friends Steve Dettelbach and Carol Rendon and Vanita Gupta from the Department of Justice to advocate for a consent decree in the city of Cleveland. That day was necessary because we all understood the gravity of the moment. At that time, we have experienced, and personally, me personally, had to interact with many of those families that lost children and loved ones as a result of police-involved interaction. So it was important to me that we got it right. So here we are, almost 11 years later, and I'm proud to say, as Council President for the City of Cleveland, I have filed an affidavit along with the city to request that we get out of the consent decree because we believe this community has put the guardrails in place with the support between the police and the community to effectively move forward to make Cleveland a safer city because of the partnership between the police and the community. We invested in a safer city. Many hands and people helped this happen, and I'd like to thank them because, once again, throughout the years, we watched a lot of transition, but Cleveland as a city, even as this mayor and the former mayor made a transition, stayed committed to the consent decree. As the mayor said, we've had major shifts in the trajectory of the city of Cleveland that need to happen upstream and not downstream. We need to make sure that we have, and we have as Cleveland City Council, invest in the proper training, the proper equipment, and also set up the proper systems in order to make sure that we keep accountability in place long after the Justice Department is gone. I believe we're still going to partner with the Justice Department even afterwards, just like Baltimore and New Orleans, in order to make sure that the changes that we put in place will continue. But as we move forward, it's time for us to command our own destiny and make sure that we control our own police department. It's time for us to govern on our own and determine our destiny and safety that the community has put in place for all of us to follow. We have better police-community relations because we were forced to face the reality that all of our systems failed many people and too many families in our community. Since then, Cleveland City Council, through the leadership of my colleague Stephanie House Jones, has passed a law called Tanisha's Law to deal with crisis response in a responsible way with non-uniformed personnel. We have passed a budget, which we're in negotiations of budget right now. We're to the tune of approximately $6 to $8 million a year that we have dedicated through departments throughout the city of Cleveland, dedicated towards police reform and activities associated with the police, with the consent decree. The residents of the city of Cleveland passed Issue 24, which is now Section 115, and the Police Commission is now in place. So we're making progress. And it's time for us to invest our resources into our future and use some of these dollars to uplift our communities and have a better quality of life and health and wellness for the residents of the City of Cleveland. Ladies and gentlemen, the consent decree and the help of all of the people that you see with you right now has made Cleveland strong in some very broke places. With that being said, Mayor, I believe that I'm turning it over to Chief Todd, who has done a remarkable job and who has actually been one of the technicians to help design all of the consent decree. Once again, I know because I was here through the transition. Chief Todd, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So first, on behalf of the men and women of the Division of Police, I want to thank Mayor Bibb and the administration for the support, thank Dr. Anderson and the Police Accountability Team for their guidance, and the Department of Justice and the monitors for the guidance over these years to get us where we are today. In the 26 years I've been a police officer, I can tell you this is a different division of police. I was here when the consent decree started. I was here before the consent decree started. And what I see now is a completely different operation. The majority of our men and women were brought on once the consent decree started. The policing they do every day is under the guidance of that decree. We have gone through policy changes, we've gone through significant training, and recently we've had assessments to test what we've done. And those assessments were positive in nature, which showed that we are on the right path and we are doing the work that the community has asked for. So what does that mean next for the Division of Police? For our daily operations, not much. You know, things will continue to operate as they have. There's not going to be lower standards. Our accountability systems do not diminish. Our commitment to accountability and transparency is going to be higher than ever, because we have to continue to build that trust in the community and make sure that they know that this was the right decision and that we are ready for the next steps. Our work here isn't finished. We are long finished with the progress that we are making. The next part is about building that trust within the community. And there's no consent decree that can help us with that. It's about our work, it's about our commitment, and the engagement that we have in the community. So please know I'm thankful to the citizens of the city for the support. I ask that they engage in these thoughtful conversations related to what they feel change looks like, and that we will continue to progress. And our commitment has not changed and will not change to having constitutional policing here within the city. Thank you.
Cleveland residents have long demanded that policing be fair and accountable. I can speak confidently that constitutional policing is embedded in the city's broader police reform framework. Its purpose is to ensure that reform efforts are sustained, evaluated, and responsive to the people most affected by policing. Civilian oversight does not just exist in name, but in practice. In the city of Cleveland, we have community members who have exercised defined roles in policy review and discipline recommendations, namely through the Community Police Commission and the Civilian Police Review Board, who also handles discipline. Cleveland's civilian oversight system was created to ensure that residents have a meaningful role in police accountability, transparency, and reform. It is designed to give the community an independent voice in how policing policies are shaped, reviewed, and evaluated. That will continue. Cleveland has implemented modernized use of force policies, strengthened supervisory oversight, enhanced officer training, including de-escalation and crisis intervention, and built reliable systems for data collection and internal accountability. Importantly, these reforms are not confined to written policies. They are reflected in day-to-day practices and institutional culture. Mechanisms will be in place to ensure ongoing dialogue, responsiveness, and civilian oversight exists. These systems are essential to maintaining public trust and ensuring continued progress. Today does not signal the end of accountability. The City of Cleveland remains fully responsible for upholding constitutional policing and maintaining the standards established under the decree. The progress achieved must be sustained through continued leadership, transparency, and partnership with the community. This milestone reflects years of dedicated work by advocates, officers, city officials, community members, and federal partners. Their collective commitment has positioned Cleveland to move forward with stronger systems, clearer expectations, and a renewed foundation of public trust. These changes were not quick, easy, or cosmetic. They were made because residents demanded better and because trust cannot be rebuilt with words alone. These assessments that the independent monitor has completed have yielded the reality that police reform in Cleveland is no longer a promise, but a set of actions that can be continually measured, audited, and challenged. If you want to know whether policing reform has taken place in Cleveland, we don't ask you to take our word for it. We ask you to look at the data, attend the oversight meetings, speak to the monitors, and hold us accountable, because now you can. Today represents a transition from federal oversight to self-sustained reform and affirms that the city has built the capacity to carry this work forward independently. The Police Accountability Team will remain positioned within the mayor's office, and it is important to note that it is the only police oversight entity within the country that sits within the mayor's office. All others have been placed within independent agencies or as sections or units underneath the police department. We also want to note that Cleveland right now has some of the most oversight in the country. Cleveland has some of the most oversight in the country. What we're gearing for and what we are having as a goal of ours is most effective oversight. Thank you.
Now we'll take a few questions.
Mayor, could you describe for us how this agreement to get out of the consent decree came together? How long have you been talking to the Justice Department about making this a reality?
These conversations really started in earnest when I was mayor-elect and had my first conversation with the head of the Civil Rights Division inside the Department of Justice. I wanted to get a kind of clear perspective on what would it take for us to be compliant over the next 4 to 6 years. It was kind of my goal when I began my term in 2022. And one of the things we did immediately in my first year in office was to bring on Dr. Anderson, because one of the initial observations I had was we didn't have an all-of-government approach across the entire enterprise of City Hall to make sure we were connecting the dots to be compliant as quickly as possible. And so we've seen great progress over the last 4 years, and because of Dr. Anderson's leadership and the leadership of Chief Todd and Safety Director Wayne Drummond, we've been able to come to this moment right now.
Would we be here today if Kamala Harris had won the White House?
Yes.
Why?
Regardless of who's in the White House, regardless of who's running the DOJ, we have set a foundation for reform, a foundation for progress. And we will continue to work with the monitor to make sure we sustain these reforms over time. I had a productive conversation with the monitor yesterday, and I've asked them to stay with us for at least a year to help us sustain these reforms over time in partnership with Dr. Anderson and the Police Accountability Team. And it's important that we continue to make the case as well to Judge Oliver about why now is the time for us to take back the reins of local control of our police department and make sure we sustain these reforms over time.
Why should people in this community be confident that these reforms will stick?
Well, I think Dr. Anderson mentioned it in her remarks. The data speaks for itself. When you look at the training and the protocols and how the culture has changed in our Department of Public Safety and across the Division of Police, we are not the same department that we were in 2015. And I think in many ways the consent decree was a blessing in disguise because it gave us the tools and the political will and the courage to do hard things. And the great work that we've done as a city over the last decade speaks to that progress and that great work. Sean? Sean's next, then you, Ed.
The last time we spoke, you said you had finished about 70% of the consent decree's goals, advisory policing,
Why ask to get out now rather than get closer to 95?
Yeah. I'll have Dr. Anderson and then Mark chime in on that one as well, too. Thanks.
Sure. So it's very difficult to put a percentage on a document such as a consent decree. And when we talk about bias-free policing and we talk about community-oriented policing, community problem-oriented policing, we understand that we are still working with the Department of Justice through technical assistance with these areas. So we have just received technical assistance to continue on with community and problem-oriented policing through the DOJ COPS office. And we also will continue on with our community engagement efforts. We have just worked with Kent State to apply for a grant, an internal grant to the university to help us understand more about the community, help us understand more about community responsiveness. And to your question, right, a consent decree, the point of it is constitutional policing. Our assessments, crisis intervention, use of force, search and seizure, training have all demonstrated that constitutional policing is in place. What's not in place? Bias-free policing. Yes, we understand that that's not in place because why? It's already embedded and institutionalized in the training, right? So it's not something that we're looking to situate within the city. It already exists. The other thing that we're looking for is community engagement. And one of the things that I can say about community engagement is that consent decrees, the consent decree has been here for 10 years, right? The community does not feel the change. We recognize that. So we need a different vehicle.
If without a monitor, who would be, like, are you committed to having an independent body to verify that you're still hitting the reforms that you hit and will hit those?
Let me hit on that point. One, I'm looking forward to working with the council president and city council to identify ways that we can sustain and potentially codify the Police Accountability Office long term as another vehicle to sustain these reforms over time. And then when you look at all the independent agencies that exist currently right now, as Dr. Anderson mentioned in her comments, we want to make sure we have the most effective oversight structure in the country. And you compare the systems we have already across the city of Cleveland, we have the most of any city in the country as well, too.
So what changes then would you want to see to the rest of that structure? Police Review Board, Police Commission, are those changes coming next?
We just want to continue to get feedback from the community on what's working and what's not working. And under Dr. Anderson's leadership, we will address those issues as they come.
What about the force investigation team?
Sorry?
Force investigation.
That does not change. That does not change. Yeah.
Mayor, I have a question about the Cleveland Police Commission. You know, certainly the police department in many ways polices itself, but you have that police commission. How would you characterize that with all the infighting, the turnover, the red tape there?
Well, with any brand new commission that was just started nearly 4 years ago, it's going to be a work in progress. But I will say, the current crop of commissioners and the new executive director, I have a lot of confidence, and I'm optimistic that they will continue to get up to speed and work with us to have pragmatic, common sense policies to continue to hold our police department accountable.
Mayor,
yeah.
The consent decree required significant investment in technology, training. Have you tallied what that's cost thus far related to the consent decree? And what are you doing to ensure that those investments continue?
Yeah. So we spent for training and technology over the last decade roughly $40 million. And so as we move forward on a go-forward basis, any savings that we may achieve from the consent decree, we'll talk to my command staff and public safety leadership with city council support on how to make sure we continue those investments. In no way are we declaring mission accomplished. But what we are saying today is that we've achieved a significant milestone in the progress that we've made under the consent decree, and now is the time for the city of Cleveland to take back the reins for local control. All right, we got time for one more question.
How are you measuring the effectiveness of police accountability systems outside of the consent decree? We're talking about being the most powerful and effective system in the country. How are you measuring it?
Great. Dr. Anderson, you want to take that?
So the measure is really going to be the community, right? So we understand that these systems already exist. So it's not that we are saying that we are the most powerful in terms of oversight. What we understand is that we have the most civilian oversight than any other city in the country. And we are proud of that. That is something that we plan to continue to move forward. And we do not understand or do not recommend, that we move forward in a way that looks at it as better or worse. It is something that has to be functioning, and we understand that because it's already institutionalized within our policies, our practices, our training, and within the civilian oversight entities that already exist.
Can I just quickly also ask, we're talking like this is lifted now. Will it ultimately be up to Judge Oliver, and is that going to happen in the next staff hearing?
Mark, you want to talk about the legal process and how we move forward?
Yes, thank you. So together with the United States Department of Justice, we've asked Judge Oliver to dismiss and terminate the consent decree so that we can move on to local leadership. But it is up to the judge at this time, but there is consensus that we've achieved the goals. So we are optimistic that we will get a good result. The time frame will be up to the judge. He's very thoughtful. I don't think it'll be tomorrow, but we're confident that he will look at the tremendous progress that the city has achieved and have confidence in our ability to lead reform going forward.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Dan DeRose with 19 News. As the mayor cuts a little short the question and answer portion of this, it's sort of tough to understand how we should look at today. I'm not exactly sure that you say today is a day to celebrate because as we heard from even the city council president, Blaine Griffin, who was around at the time the consent decree was put in place and helped to negotiate with the Department of Justice, he said at the time all of our systems had failed within the Cleveland Police Department. So to say that the city has been removed or relieved of federal oversight by the Department of Justice, not exactly a day to celebrate. It just means that our police department has gotten to a point to maybe where it should have been, that there were questions about use of force. When you look at the Tamir Rice shooting, there were really two events that set off and really called the DOJ into Cleveland to take a look at what was going on here. It was the Tamir Rice shooting, the young man with a pellet gun or a BB gun in a park who was shot and killed by the first two responding officers, or at least one of the officers fired there. And then really the 137 shot episode. You had two suspects that were being chased by a multitude of officers. I think anyone who sees the video of 10, 15, 20 different patrol cars chasing one car would say that that maybe fits the definition of excessive, let alone when that chase came to an end in the back parking lot of a school after hours. And there were 137 shots fired at the two suspects from multiple angles. There was crossfire. There were officers' cars that were being hit by bullets by other officers, and it turned out those two suspects did not have a gun. Those were really the two major events that started really the inquiry of bringing in the Department of Justice to look at the way things were handled in Cleveland. And that's when the U.S. Department of Justice said there needs to be a monitor here. Things need to change. Training needs to change, and all the way down to the way crisis situations are handled. Crisis situations meaning maybe someone going through a mental situation or a mental health issue. That is somebody that is in a crisis situation. And one of the stats that was revealing that Mayor Justin Bibb read off there was that just in recent years, since the consent decree has been in place in the area of crisis management, just 2% of calls for crisis help have ended with arrests. That's a major difference. You can see where 10 years ago that number would have been much higher. Someone's having a mental health breakdown. They're, for whatever reason, police have to be called. You can guarantee the percent of those people that were arrested was much, much higher than 2% 10 years ago. So we are clear of this. From a taxpayer perspective, the positive news here is that the city of Cleveland has spent at a minimum $60 million. You have to pay that team of federal monitors. They are attorneys. They are experts in the field of policing. We have spent $60 million at a minimum to have that team monitor the Cleveland Police Department for the last 10 years plus. And at least now that can stop, and that money can be spent perhaps on more training, on hiring, and bolstering the public's trust. You heard that is the next goal, according to Dorothy Todd. This is all about getting the community to trust the Cleveland Police Department yet again. Positive news for the city of Cleveland, for Mayor Justin Bibb and his department and his administration, finally getting out from underneath the umbrella of the Federal Department of Justice. Our 11 o'clock news just 15 minutes away on Cleveland's 43, then our noon news on Channel 19, and we'll be on our digital platforms throughout the day. Until then, I'm Dan DeRosa with 19 News. Have a good afternoon.